Greetings and salutations. Dave Duford here at Duford Insurance Group. We're doing it live on another live stream training where today we're going to be talking about how to quickly qualify your final expense leads. Thank you all so much for those of you out there who are joining live. And of course, for those of you who are hopefully watching this wonderful video many years in the future, I appreciate you watching and learning more about this important, terribly important tactic and strategy that, frankly, very few of you are actually doing correctly. The purpose of this training is to really give you your dignity back, to give you the important things back, like not wasting time with deadbeats and tire kickers and prospects that won't buy. There's nothing more frustrating in the world of selling final expense than trying to convince an unqualified prospect to buy from you. My promise to you today is to teach you the exact same strategies that I teach my agents at Duford Insurance Group who sell final expense over the phone and face-to-face. Of course, if you'd like to learn more, go to davidduford.com/FAQ. And to walk you through the entire scripting, as well as the questions asked, and as well as explaining the psychology behind how to effectively and quickly qualify your final expense leads, whether you're selling over the phone or in person. So grab a pen and a paper and take notes. Let's get started. So those of you who are live, and thanks Danielle, Mike, and Andrea for being here, you're welcome to throw your questions in the chat as we get started. So if you have any questions pop up as we're going through the training, throw them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll get to them at the end and do a little Q&A at the end with anything related to our topic today or anything about insurance sales as it stands. Okay, so let's begin. Here's the thing. I finished the other day with a training about closing final expense leads. Some of you attended that, I'm sure. If you didn't, go look for it. It's very good. And one of the things I said in the process of teaching agents how to close, what to say, why to say it, is that frankly, closing isn't that important. Yeah, you should know how to close. It's certainly a part of the process. But the way that we do sales now, not being so high pressure like it was in the traditional models. Hey, Kobe, thanks for being here. You too, Matt and Kenny. The bottom line is that it doesn't matter as much. And how you close, the effectiveness of your close is very much correlated to the quality in which you open your sales call. And when we talk about opening the sales call, that also means building rapport and trust, a kind of a different training for another day, but also equally, if not more so important, connecting with your client based off of the questions you ask to determine if they're what we would call a qualified prospect or an unqualified suspect. The beauty and the power and strength that comes from being an effective agent, spending your time with the best quality prospects, and minimizing as much time as possible with the unqualified suspects comes from a powerful, effective, and objective strategy to qualify whether or not these final expense leads are going to be high odds buyers or low odds buyers, okay? And again, what this does, and I wasn't just, joking, when you get good at qualifying your prospect early on in the sales call, you kind of capture some dignity that many of us unfortunately lose in the sales process. And what I mean by that is many of us feel like at times, I don't know if you felt like this, that you beg the person to buy from you, that you, in a sense, grovel and lower your status to the prospect as you try to rebuttal their objections, and you don't know really why they're objecting, you don't understand it, and you're just at the point of begging, and you kind of lower yourself in desperation to make money. And that is such a turnoff and something that we want to avoid. And with an effective pre-qualifying strategy, you don't ever have to beg anybody anymore. You only do business with those people you want to do business. They qualify according to your standards, not theirs. It puts you back into the driver's seat. And it makes selling fun again. Because the outcome, and we're going to go through all this, of course. I'm just setting the stage of what qualifying is and why it's so important. The outcome of effective qualifying is you spend your valuable time as a human being with people who are high odds chances of buying, that meet all of your criteria for buying. And you cut short the deadbeats, the tire kickers, the time wasters within 10 to 15 minutes of that presentation, again, on the phone or in person. You don't beg them. You get out of the home and you go see your real prospect. And there's something empowering about that. It's a little scary at first because you're taught, well, you got to sell, everybody's a prospect. Everybody wants to buy. You just need to know what to say. And there's some kernels of truth to that, but a lot of us realize, not everybody's a prospect. Not everybody's going to buy. A lot of people are going to waste my time. And I don't want to be in that position of wasting time. Do you? I don't. So what we're going to teach you today is the actual strategy to not be in that position, to be in a position of power. Tracy, hey, thanks for being here. So let's talk about that. So in the final expense arena, what you have to ask yourself is, again, we want to make the pre-qualifying process objective. When I mean objective, I want it not to be based off of like, I feel like this person's going to buy or I don't feel like they are. Like, feelings are subjective. They're subjective to the environment and they're prone to individual interpretation, and they're not something to depend upon. We want an objective process to where we can check off the boxes, literally and figuratively, that our clients are successfully, meeting the criteria to determine then if they are a prospect that is qualified. So the question becomes, what are those factors? What are those pre-qualification factors that we need to be concerned about when we're pre-qualifying our final expense prospect? And the more we can define these, then the outcome is we're more likely, more often than not, going to spend time with just buyers, okay, on the longer presentations beyond the first 10 to 15 minutes. So what are these 5 factors? We're going to go through all of these. The first one, and these aren't in any particular order, although I will say the first 2 are the most important. And the first 2 is need and want or desire. Now, what is need and desire? I think final expense is unique in the sense that the need for a life insurance policy to cover burial expenses or final expenses must be there. Now, the need may be obvious to the client. Hey, my husband died. I had to pay out of pocket. It was terrible. I don't want to do it to my kids. But sometimes the need isn't obvious. Hey, I've got life insurance. I've had XYZ overpriced life insurance company for 5 years. I'm not going to move anything. They're unaware that they actually have a need. So sometimes the need is something we have to not create. The common usage is create. We're not creating that need. We're uncovering the need they didn't know they had, right? So sometimes it's not right away that you get the need. You do some fact finding, you find out what they have, and you realize it's not what they thought they should have. And upon this discovery process, they're brought to this whole new world of opportunity, and therefore we've uncovered that need. But there must be a need there, in my opinion, with 90% of our clients. Now, in the real world, there's all sorts of stuff that you and I buy that we don't need, but we like. I don't need a Starbucks drink, but I buy it because it's good. I could just brew my own, right? So likewise, many times in the final expense world, because life insurance is one of those products that it's not something you splurge on, and you really don't want to buy it anyway because you got to die to get it. It's kind of in this unique realm of you need to have a need, I think, to motivate the person to buy it. Again, not across the board, but probably 90% of the time. So we uncover need by asking questions like, what were your thoughts, concerns when you requested this information? What are you doing right now for existing life insurance? Oh, you have done? What happens if you die? Who pays for this? What's your experience has been with funerals? What was that like not having coverage? How did it make you feel? This all stimulates need and desire too, which we'll get to in a second. And we're going to go through this a little bit more scripted, but I'm just kind of, again, defining these objective factors that are so crucial that you need to uncover as you do the process of selling, okay? The next thing is desire or want, need and want, desire, urgency. The client has to desire to want to have peace of mind. Now, some people say they desire it, but their, somnambulance of being a sloth outweighs their desire to buy. They'd rather just put off the decision and wait another day. John Duggar, guy I interviewed last week. Check out that interview if you haven't already. He calls these clients, which is what I call them, and which everybody does eventually. Final expense clients are world-class procrastinators. If it can be put off tomorrow, we put it off tomorrow. I ain't jumping on the boat to do it today. So the desire factor is something I think you have to stimulate in the prospect. You have to cause them to want this because there's a kernel of desire there. But the greatest of us agents stimulate that desire so that the client sees the hearse backed up against the front porch. They see death as it is with good agents. They see it as a reality that they can't avoid anymore, and they have to take action while they're healthy enough to do so, right? So we ask questions like, what was your experiences dealing with funerals? Wow, your husband died. I'm sorry. Did he have coverage? He didn't. What was that like? How did you pay for it? How did it make you feel? Because what this does in verbalizing these experiences, and I assure you every person has one of these, it makes this thing more real. And as they say and share these experiences, they see themselves going through the same thing in a sense. And what happens is that urgency is manifested into reality that much more, so that the desire to buy increases exponentially. So again, we're not pressuring our clients into thinking, they're just asking them open-ended questions, taking them down memory lane and reliving that emotion and that feeling, okay? So we got to get the desire flared or inflamed so that they have the desire to buy this most intangible product that they can't touch or take with them as they die. They don't get the money, somebody else does. So to get them to buy today, okay? Now, once we've established need, we've established desire, now we kind of get into the familiar zone that we're all used to. The next thing we have to deal with is health. Does the client health or medically qualify? This is pretty straightforward, probably the easiest of the pre-qualifying factors, because why? You all have guaranteed acceptance policies out there. We know if they fit between 50 and 80 or 40 and 80, they're going to get covered by something, right? So this stage is really set to qualify what type of plans are going to be available to them. Are they level policies, graded, guaranteed issue, whatever, right? And to help us zone in on which of the options are going to be best suited for them. The health qualifying section also has the added benefit of enhancing our profile in the mind of the prospect. As we start to name off these drugs, as we start to name off these health conditions, we sound like we're professionals. We know about these conditions. You have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. You have diabetic neuropathy. I see you take lisinopril, metoprolol, Aricept. Do you remember taking that? Guys winking a little joke there for us inside agents. You know what that means. And the point is, when you start saying these names of these medications and rehearsing the medications, the health, you sound like an expert without saying you're an expert, right? You sound like you know what you're talking about, and you're going to engender an idea of expertise in the mind of the client by automation, okay? Automatically. We also want to ask about the client's medical medication. One thing I'll say, you want to tell the client to grab the medications. You never want to ask them permission to get them, okay? Go grab your medications for me. If you're on the phone, you want them to spell it out. Don't ever have them try to pronounce hydrochlorothiazide, right? Like it ain't happening. Just spell it out. If you're in person, you can grab them, write them down, and always ask the client, what do you take this for and why? Okay, just to get a profile. So that's pretty much the easiest part of the pre-qualification section. We've got to do this anyway for underwriting's purposes. The last two are very critical as well. The fourth component is, does the client have an account? What is it? And do they give us permission to draft it? Okay? I don't want to give a full presentation to find out the client has no bank account. Well, I've just wasted a hell of a lot of time that I didn't had to have wasted, right? Or I find out that the client has a Direct Express card and I've pitched them on a product that doesn't accept it, right? Oh, waste of time. And I might have to backpedal and only give them a graded plan when I told them they would get level, right? I look dumb. They lose trust in me, and many of them might just turn the deal off altogether. So we want to ask about this up front. And we don't want to waste a whole presentation on pitching them to find out you're going to draft me? Oh, I ain't doing that, right? So why wait to handle the heavy stuff? Handle it now, okay? So the script that we use on that sounds something like, so 2 questions for you, Mrs. Prospect. The first one is about how we collect payment. Just so you know, all the carriers out there require us to set up an automated payment that's timed exactly to the date that you get your Social Security or disability check starting the following month. All I need to know is, do you bank locally at a normal bank account, or do you have one of those cards like a Direct Express card you get your money on? And what this does is I tell them, the companies require us to set up a bank draft. We're taking your money. I'm not asking for permission. Now, they'll object to it if they will, because it's clear I'm getting their money on a bank draft. That's how it works. The companies require it. And that's always a nice little turn of the phrase, because it tells the client, hey, look, don't kill the messenger. It's the companies require it, right? And then I specify, is it a local bank account with a normal company, like a Regions or SunTrust or whatever, or is it one of those card accounts that's like a Direct Express card? So then that way I can identify the type of account and then choose the carriers according to what the options are. Does that make sense? So once we've got that, my favorite part, the last part, is qualifying on budget. Now, not all of you do the budget qualifying. Some of you don't talk anything about price till the end. And I'm going to explain to you why we don't do that. First of all, I want to sell something to a prospect in the final expense business that is easily affordable, that they can decide on what's affordable to them based off of a most sober analysis. I don't want to get them all excited about burial insurance and then show the prices to them, because our clients have a lifelong history of making dumb financial decisions, just being honest. And you ain't going to change that behavior, period. So what I prefer to do is ask about budget before I start to distinguish between the differences of term, whole life, guaranteed issue, and why they should buy to me, because that sells me more and gets them more excited. I'm aware of that. So I want to ask about budget before I do that, because I feel like their response is not going to be as stimulated by excitement. Does that make sense? So we ask for budget here because I feel like I'm going to get the best response to what they can afford, because I am sincerely concerned about overselling what it is that I do. And I feel like waiting to the end to talk about budget with our type of clientele that just isn't good with money is asking for trouble and is a displaced strategy. So what we do in a nutshell, strategically, when we ask for the budget, is I first set up a script that gets the client comfortable, that I tell them, hey, I understand you're on a fixed income. The last thing you want to do is spend too much money on a policy. Why would you want to drop it in 6 months because the AC bill's through the roof? That's a waste of money. And usually they're nodding their head like, yep, that's right. The only plan that I want to get for you, Mrs. Prospect, is the one that's easily affordable, because that's the one that's going to be there when you die, right? Why would you get anything else? So I say all this because I'm priming the pump to get them ready to ask for the big bucks, as I'll show you in a minute. But likewise, I'm getting them comfortable with them understanding that I'm on their side. I am here to sell them a policy they can easily afford. I am here to help, not to take, okay? So at this point, this gives me the permission to reach for the stars, to shoot for the big policy, okay? And I'm going to explain to you psychologically why you should always aim high. And some of you are going to gasp when I tell you how much I ask for, but I'm going to explain to you why I do this. So after I do that little preamble, I say, so my question is this: if I can qualify you for a program today, can you afford somewhere between $150 a month to $200 a month? Zip. And then I let them think about it. Now, what happens is the old Red Fox routine, right? About 3 out of 4 times. Mildred clutches her heart, looks up to heaven and says, I'm coming home, right? Some of you too young to know what I'm talking about. They say no in so many words. Sometimes they're actually surprisingly like, it's a little too expensive, because I've set it up to where they feel comfortable saying that. And instead of arguing with that client, like, well, you should, I take them at their word, because I don't want to push them into something that's too affordable. They'll just too expensive. They'll just cancel it. So my response is, hey, that's no problem. What if I can qualify you for a different program, and the price is somewhere between $100 to $125 a month? Would that fit your budget? If they don't say yes to that, if they say anything other than a yes, even if it's a maybe, I say, hey, sometimes when people say maybe or that sounds okay, it's just a little high. Let's take a step lower because we need it to be affordable. What if I can find you a plan between $75 and $100 a month? Would you be 100% sure that would fit your budget? And when they say, yeah, that'll work, whether that's at $150 to $200 or $10 to $15, I don't care, because I'm going to lock in a budget they can afford, because what the pre-qualifying script does with the budget is that it eliminates the price objection. I mean, how many of you got in the end of your sales presentations, you got to deal with the frustrating price objection, right? I don't want to deal with it, okay? I don't want to deal with it. Then, I don't want to waste an hour to get there to then fight over price. I want to get to it in 10 minutes to 15 minutes and deal with the heavy lifting then, so that I can eliminate that objection and not have to worry about it, right? So the psychology of this, guys, a couple of things here. This has been one of the best things I've implemented in my sales scripting in my agency, is this budget script. It takes some guts to ask for $150 to $200 a month when you're inside of a single wide trailer with the ceiling collapsing and, you know, roaches scuttling around. But we do it because what happens is we expect and anticipate the client to say no, and that's fine. But by starting at $200 and working your way down, $75 a month seems like a much better deal than if you started at $100 a month and then went to $75. So what happens, there's this kind of back and forth in a low pressure type of way, that the client ends up paying more because there's this relative difference in what they're paying that seemingly seems like it's a good deal. Well, he's got plans up to $200, but I'm paying $75 a month. That's pretty good. That sounds like a good deal. But what happens is the average seems to be higher with the strategy than if we started at something like $75 to $100. Because then somebody may push back and say, it's a little too expensive. Well, okay, no problem. What about $50 to $75? Yeah, I can do that. Perfect. So then you show budgets in that range of $50 to $75 instead of $75 to $100. Does that make sense, guys? So we end up getting more higher case sizes out of this strategy by shooting high and then going low than if we started low to begin with, right? All the while, there's no pressure in this because we just say, they push back and say, I can't afford that. And my answer is, hey, it's no problem. And I just lower the price down, okay? So what happens here at the outcome of this is that I have a client that is qualified. Think about this. This is the beauty of it. Think about all the objections you hear at the end of the sales presentation. Do I really need this? Do I really want it? I can't qualify for it. I don't want to do bank drafts. I don't do bank drafts, right? I can't afford it. That's like the majority of the objections that you experience, plus the trust factor. But what I believe is by asking all these questions up front, you sound like a much better sales rep. You sound like somebody who really cares about their clients because of in the way that you ask these questions. And the benefit you get out of that is increased trust, okay? And you overcome these objections within 10 to 15 minutes of starting the call. And what you have at the outcome of this is a prospect that is highly qualified. They have a need, they have a desire, they've got the health that works, they've got a bank account you can draft, and they got a budget. Like, how hard is it at this point to sell this person? Not hard at all. Wouldn't you want to start very soon into the sales presentation with all of that taken care of, than trying to unravel all this after an hour on the phone or in person? Try it. I guarantee you'll agree with me. Doing it the old way, where you deal with the hard stuff at the end, pales in comparison to your sanity and your results and optimizing your time than doing it like what we do, doing the heavy lifting up front instead of at the end. So a couple of things. If you got questions in the chat, throw them down. I'm going to go through my notes here, make sure I hit on some of the, maybe some stuff that I missed. So a couple of things about going backwards to the need and want, right? The main questions I like to ask are, what were your thoughts, concerns that led you to request this information? I want to understand the client's why. Why did they request this information? Why are they now interested in life insurance? Why did they now send back this card or pick up this phone to call me to request information about burial insurance? This is an interesting break in the conditioning. Why are they doing this when they never did this before. Something has happened in their life. Something has caused them to be concerned. And what happens in many cases, people had this inflection point of interest years ago, usually a year or two ago, based off of the death of a loved one. And that got their mind turning as to the need and necessity to have peace of mind through life insurance. And that interest just builds and builds over time. And you're now at the climax of that, at the point where now you get to see what their interest lies. They're at the point of making that decision to buy, right? But we have to revisit that inflection point because that therein lies where the need and desire originally came from, right? And so the follow-up questions to that I like to ask is they'll tell me their why. I'll ask things like, so what are you doing for your existing life insurance? And they say stuff like, well, I don't have any. And my response is, well, God forbid if you died tomorrow, what happens? And then I basically ask these disturbing questions because I want them to be disturbed, that they're not protected. If they have life insurance, I say, great, congratulations. I'm glad to hear you've actually taken care of this. A lot of people don't. So tell me, who is your existing life insurance with again? And then I start to fact find it because remember back earlier, we were talking about unrealized needs. Maybe this client has a company named after the American president or a American president, and the price is through the roof. It's very expensive. And then I'm able to show them, hey, you got a great company, but you're overpaying. I can get you double the coverage for the same price. What do you think about that? Where do I sign up is what they say 8 out of 10 times, all right? So the point is we have to make sure that we fact find on their existing coverage to unearth a need that they didn't know they actually had. Does that make sense? So we got to try for that on every call. Other things I like to do in the need and desire section is to talk about inflation. This is a newer part of our script, about 1.5 years old or so. And we deliberately talk about escalating pricing. And this has all been made very clear with the lockdowns and COVID and all this stuff. Prices for everything has just shot through the roof. And the same has always been the case for funeral costs. They just go up real high. And they've gotten even worse since all of this stuff began. And all of our clients understand how cheap things used to be 30, 40, 50 years ago versus to where they are today. So where our inflation talk goes is it relates what's going on and what has happened in the past to what's going on now, but more importantly, relates it to what will continue to go on in the future, which is what? Higher and higher and higher prices. And what this inflation talk does is it gets the client to understand that your life insurance policy shouldn't just cover today's cost, it should also cover tomorrow's cost. And the outcome of this scripting is it at the minimum opens the mind of the prospect to potentially buying more coverage than they originally thought. It gives us the opportunity to sell a bigger policy than we had prior to that, okay? And it's a true sharing of very important knowledge that, frankly, all of our clients really need to be considering. Like, do you not know how expensive it is? You should probably be a little prepared, right? So that's a big portion of the pre-qualifying part there, especially in the need and the desire. Back to the health questions, just to mention this, you got to be nosy. It ain't enough to just say, you had any health problems in the past 5 years? Nah, nothing serious. Just what they're thinking is, I got that touch of AIDS, but it's under control. I'm pretty healthy. Or I got that, I'm prescribed Aricept for memory loss, but I'm in best health I've ever been in the last 10 years, right? So the quality of your answers is predicated on the quality of your questions. And when you're asking health questions, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to be deliberate in the process of going through them. So all of our agents get a pre-qualifying worksheet. If you're interested out there, you're not in my agency, and you'd like to have this for yourself, shoot me a message at daviddufour.com/contact and just say, hey, can you send that pre-qualification worksheet? I'll be happy to send it to you. No obligation or anything. And what happens is you'll see line by line all of the questions we ask. So how, do you have any lung disease? Okay, so you don't. So no asthma, no COPD, no bronchitis. Okay, do you take any oxygen besides what you breathe in the air through the nose in a machine? Or do you use an inhaler? We're that thorough at every element of the questioning process. Why? Because our clients will downplay the severity of their diseases, right? Oh, I just take insulin for diabetes. Oh, I just have diabetic neuropathy, but I'm in great shape, right? Everybody's in great shape, all right? Even the people who aren't. So instead of using their subjective perspective on how their shape is, then why don't you just actually ask them the questions, right? And be specific. So you might sound a little nosy, but being thorough is better than not being, because the worst thing you can do is get to the end, pitch the client on this great new plan that's first day full coverage, and you find out they've got COPD and it's not first day full coverage, the price goes up, or they've got dementia or Alzheimer's or something bad that precludes them from even getting a policy, right? So we want to avoid that by being thorough early so that the likelihood is that much higher that you'll actually get the deal done. I think that pretty much covers the basis of pre-qualifying. I want to make sure we hit on the high notes here again. This is, I'll say this before I take some questions in the chat. Let me be abundantly clear here with you guys. This is like 80% of the presentation, the importance of it, is getting this and being really good at it. In my agency, when I coach my agents and I try to help them develop their script, guess where they screw up the most? It's not the close. It's not rapport building. It's not explaining how term and whole life is different. It's this. It's asking these questions. And I think the main reason it's screwed up more often than not is because these are some pretty personal questions. What if you die tomorrow? What happens? Pretty disturbing, right? And it gets our clients uncomfortable, but that's what it takes to sell this stuff. You can't go hop down to the dealership and drive a life insurance policy around and envision how awesome you're going to look to everybody else. Like, nah, that's not how it works. This is a policy you throw into a lockbox until you croak. You got to instill the urgency and desire purposely, because you just don't get the same kind of excitement of buying like you would with most tangible goods you can touch and feel and see. So going through this process, getting really good at pre-qualifying, to me, is the make it or break it skill set that's really going to define how well you perform as an agent in this business of selling final expense. Number one, because you spend more time with better prospects, but number two, you gain back your dignity. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if somebody has need, desire, they got perfect health, they can spend some money, but they ain't got no bank account. You know, they put their money in their bra and that's how they store it. I've had clients who would do that back in the day. That is an unqualified prospect. I can't sell that person. They can walk on the ground or crawl on the ground on all fours over broken glass begging for coverage. I can't help that person. I can't draft him. I'm not going to waste another second in that home, and neither should you. Retain your dignity. End a sales call that is a low odds opportunity. Go find a real prospect that will actually hand their money over to you and do business with you. And if you do that, you'll find that this business is a lot more fun. It's a lot more enjoyable. And you are back in control in the driver's seat. You do not take orders from your prospects. You give them orders and you retain your personal dignity. You're still helping them, but you're not wasting your valuable time with people who just won't buy. So that's pre-qualifying. Let's talk about the questions in the chat. Antonio, Edward Junts once fired an advisor because they left a bottle of wine at their desk. Client gave it to him. All right, well, let me see if they're here and see if there's anything actually interesting to talk about here. Okay. Right. I think you were doing this last time, Antonio, just bagging on Edward Jones. So, yeah, it's all right. That's why you don't do business with these people that you don't believe in. That's kind of how I'd look at it. Kobe, good question here. What to do if you're suspicious they're holding something back on their health or not being upfront? So one thing you can start to do, if you get the sense that you run into a lot of these difficulties at the end of the call where something pops up that you didn't expect, then what you can say is, Mrs. Prospect, what I'm going to do now is ask you some health questions. Please listen carefully. I need you to tell me exactly all of the ailments, if it's an issue or not. Some people, they're a little bashful about sharing their health, but what happens is if they hold back and we get to doing a policy, you may end up getting declined and you may not qualify for anything. And you might waste a lot of time we don't have to. So my point is, Mrs. Prospect, Please answer my questions honestly, yes or no. And if there's anything that I don't mention at the end of this that you think is important, let me know. Can we make a deal about that? Sure. So maybe a little preemptive talk, like, could you just be honest with me, will help. I noticed some people have more problem with this than others, and I never did. I don't know if it's just whatever it is, but this is sometimes a problem people feel like they have. With that said, I, a long time ago, shut my brain off and stopped thinking and trying to judge prematurely if, this person's got this or that. Like, I don't do that anymore. My job is just to ask the questions on the application. It's just to record the policy that the client selects and to do it in an ethical way. I don't prejudge. I don't do any of that stuff. And I would recommend that you guys don't do it either. Just ask the questions. The client decides to answer yes or no to them. And that's the best you can hope for. You're not a doctor. You're not a nurse. You're an insurance agent. Now, if there's something obvious to the client, I don't know, like they've got oxygen strapped to their head, they're obviously incapacitated, and you're asking the health questions like, no, I don't take oxygen. Like, okay, that's a lie, right? That's obvious. But there's some stuff that you may suspect, but it isn't obvious. It might just be your own bias or belief. Just make sure that you can differentiate that. Again, your job is to ask the questions on the app, and barring any sort of obviously BS stuff, to just record that as it is. Where do we find the pre-qualifying worksheet? On the training site. Look under the face-to-face or telesales section, and you'll see it in the resources section near the top of those pages. No problem. No, I understand. There's this tendency to vent a little bit, right? With people who understand. So I totally understand. Jackson, hey, what's up? And guys, you got questions, feel free to throw them out. Oh, by the way, hit the like button, please, 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 just to get this video shared with people who desperately need to watch it, because they don't get training like this. A lot of the industry and agents in this industry don't. Hey, Dave, do you have a list of common medical conditions and common medications spellings? Spellings? In the final expense demographic. I've got a cheat sheet that has some of them listed. I'll kind of rattle down the list here of things that I think are worth paying attention to. Aricept, donepezil. That's always going to be a guaranteed issue situation because it indicates Alzheimer's or dementia. Spiriva always indicates COPD. Drugs like Breo. I think Breo is predominantly asthma. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Certainly drugs and inhalers like Ventolin. There's some other ones I'll let you go. Albuterol. Those can usually indicate asthma. Sometimes they're used for Spiriva, but mostly asthma. Lisinopril, metoprolol, simvastatin. Anything that has statin on the end is typically okay. That treats cholesterol. Cholesterol is not a problem in this business. Lisinopril, metoprolol, those LOLs at the end don't mean laugh out loud. It indicates kind of a blood pressure type of treatment, so usually that's fine. Furosemide in lower doses typically indicates like water pooling in the legs, maybe edema. That's kind of where the body retains water. But if you see higher doses, it usually indicates congestive heart failure, especially if the client also takes carvedilol or Coreg. That is a medication that treats the heart, and the furosemide is a diuretic. It pulls water off the heart, which precipitates the problems with congestive heart failure. Seeing those two together, I wouldn't even submit it with a company that says it can take it to me unless I had a prior conversation and they were clear it was okay. Usually it indicates congestive heart failure. Spironolactone is another medication commonly. Sometimes people say it's blood pressure, but it really is a heavy cardio medication, typically associated with congestive heart failure. Send your congestive heart failure guys at the filming of this to Guarantee Trust Life. They give 50% death benefit in the second year, much better than a 2-year wait. If you guys don't have that product, you want it, let me know. Reach out to davidford.com/contact. It's an excellent near guaranteed issue carrier. Let's see what else. There's a lot of other ones I'm probably forgetting. Also, gabapentin, Lyrica, Neurontin. These are medications that treat neuropathy. This is nerve damage in the body. But if it's taken in combination with any diabetic medication, metformin, glipizide, any of your shots, it usually indicates diabetic neuropathy. The problem with diabetic neuropathies are very, very few carriers that take it first day full coverage. The one that we use a lot that does cover it is Rural Neighbors of America. Excellent first day full coverage option for diabetic neuropathy. I used to see it like 1 out of 4 cases. And the trend in the business now is that diabetic neuropathy indicates a lot of future health issues because the diabetes has been so undermanaged for so long in the client that it's just debilitated the nerve endings in the fingers and the feet. And usually that starts to wear apart the internal organs. So you start to see nephropathy, kidney issues. Some diabetics lose their vision and they start to lose their appendages. It's terrible. Diabetes is a terrible thing. But now what companies do is they realize it's a foreboding of bad things, and they just have taken it best as graded, like with Trinity or Family Benefit, or just a knockout. Rural Neighbors is really the only thing that covers it. That's kind of the stuff that's off the top of my head. I'm sure there's some other stuff that I'm missing. Those are the common ones I would run into the field that are problematic from time to time. Just make sure you're thorough asking about health questions and then collecting the information on the prescriptions. See the medications if you're in person. Don't just believe the client's going to remember taking them all. Some of these people have pharmacies in their back of their house. So tell them to grab the meds, look through them, run through them. And usually, guys, one other thing I'll throw out there, if somebody takes a med and it's not listed on the prescription guide, it's typically okay. That means it's not a big deal. We were looking at a med today called Procrit, which treats, low blood count, anemia. But it also can treat other things too. It's a multi-use medication. And one carrier we looked at had nothing about Procrit listed, so that's conceivably the best option. While this other carrier listed it as graded or modified or even declined. So we didn't do that carrier. We did the other carrier because we felt that was the best choice for that particular medication taken. So, and guys, I'm rattle all this stuff off because I've done it for so long. It's just kind of a part of me. You will learn this stuff and kind of accumulate this knowledge. I would say 80% of your clients take the same collection of drugs. It's kind of funny. Like everybody takes lisinopril. Everybody takes metoprolol. A lot of people take metformin, right? So you'll start to see the trends and kind of the connections as you do this long enough. Okay, let's see here. Ran into a few of those the other day and wasn't ready for it. Won't make that mistake again. Have Guarantee Trust Life in my back pocket. Oh, a couple other meds too I'll mention. Narcan.
Has it been sounding like a crime scene out here?
No, they can't hear nothing.
They can't hear all the kids screaming?
No, I hope not.
Okay.
If they do,
I started laughing. It was so bad.
They know it's here. They know it's the house. It's just kids. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. I got 4 kids. We work at home, so it is what it is. 1 minute. Couple other things. Speaking of drugs, a lot of people these days are being prescribed Narcan. This is a anti-overdose medication. People who are prescribed, I don't know if it's state-based, but depending on how bad the opiate problem is, a lot of people are prescribed Narcan along with their opiates if they go into a drug overdose because it's so bad and nobody does anything to stop this shit. But anyways, Narcan always indicates a 2-year wait at worst, a Guarantee Trust Life situation at best. And what happens is that if somebody has a prescription for Narcan that was filled in the past 2 years, you're looking at a GTL situation, okay? Also, Suboxone, that treats opiate dependency or alcoholism. Sometimes you'll run into that too. Typically a 2-year wait. I think that might be GTL friendly too. Again, I'm mentioning this because this stuff will throw you up and it'll throw you out of sync. And it's very frustrating to deal with if you're not necessarily prepared. But we like GTL and for those weird situations for a lot, yeah. A lot of folks have doctors that take 1 tablet for daily tremors. They put 4 on Bob. Take 4 tremors. Yeah, right. Exactly. So, okay. Well, I think that's enough rattling off some drugs that are common in the business that you got to pre-qualify for. Again, just be thorough. Please consult your RX guides. Be thorough on the front end. That's kind of the whole purpose of today's training is thoroughness and doing the heavy lifting on the front end makes this business immensely easier, and it'll make your life a lot better and the business more fun. So hope you enjoyed this training. If you did, please hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. And if you're interested in joining DeFord Insurance Group, you know what to do. daviddufour.com/FAQ to learn more about selling final expense, Medicare, face-to-face or over the phone, and maybe sprinkling in some annuities from time to time as well. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again. Bye.